This Easter, I was told I'm just a guest in my family home. 3 months later, I bought it out from under my gold-digging stepmom and left them on the street. Hey guys, got something nagging me to write about, and here goes. So my dad and stepmom found out yesterday that Karma takes Visa, MasterCard, and cash offers on houses. Who knew? I, 28 male, just bought my childhood home out from under my gold-digging stepmom after a decade of being treated like the family piggy bank. The look on her face when she realized I was her buyer? Chef's kiss. Priceless. Literally the only thing I've gotten from this family that didn't cost me thousands. But the journey from doormat to door owner is a wild ride. Let me explain. Quick backstory. My mom died of pancreatic cancer when I was 16. She was amazing. Science teacher, gardening enthusiast, and the only person who ever encouraged my interest in architecture and building things. She'd wake me up saying, "Rise and shine, future architect." Dad worked as a project manager at an engineering firm. We were happy. Normal. Then she got sick and was gone in 8 months. Looking back, I can see how everything changed the moment mom got sick. Dad checked out almost immediately, emotionally AWOL while still physically present. When the doctor said terminal, he started coming home later and later. Meanwhile, I was the one sitting with mom during chemo, holding her hair back when she puked, and pretending not to notice how much weight she was losing. Freaking coward couldn't even look her in the eyes during the final weeks. Enter that Karen named Tina, my mom's wellness coach, who'd been pushing green juices and crystal healing as supplements to her chemo. Somehow this woman showed up at the funeral, standing way too close to my dad. 3 weeks later, she moved in, just to help out. Help meant repainting mom's carefully chosen walls, throwing out her clothes, reorganizing her kitchen, and sleeping in her bed. I confronted Dad once when I found Mom's gardening journals in the recycling bin. His response? "We need to move forward, Luke. Tina says holding on to these things is keeping us stuck in grief." 4 months after the funeral, they got married. I refused to attend. My brother Jake, now 24 male, then 12, went wearing a new suit Tina picked out. I stayed home building a memorial bench for Mom's garden, the same garden Tina later dug up for her meditation space. Dad actually had the balls to lecture me about respecting his choices and being there for family. I just stared at him and said, "You mean like how you've been there for me?" He didn't have shit to say after that. Jake later told me Dad made some speech at the wedding about second chances and healing that made everyone cry. Meanwhile, I was in the backyard with my hands bleeding from working on that bench. The only person who seemed to remember Mom was actually gone. After that, Dad completely checked out. Bills piled up. The mortgage payments were missed. Meanwhile, Jake never went without anything he wanted, and Dad and Tina would disappear for wellness weekends, while I made sure Jake had food. So I started working, landscaping after school, and doing weekend shifts at a local auto shop. My A's dropped to C's. College applications sat untouched while I was out learning how to fix sprinkler lines and tear apart engines instead of prepping for finals. The first time I paid the mortgage was 3 months after Tina moved in. Found the past due notice and used my entire month's earnings to cover it. Dad just said, "That's what family does," and patted my shoulder. I'll never forget that day. Standing in line at the bank with a stack of crumpled bills in my hand, surrounded by actual adults handling their business. The teller looked at me like I was some kind of unicorn, a 16-year-old kid making a mortgage payment. "Is your dad with you, sweetie?" she asked. "No, ma'am," I said. "He's busy finding himself." She didn't ask any more questions after that, and that became our dynamic. I was the provider/ATM. Dad was the passive bystander. Tina was the director. Jake became the golden child. But now at 28, I own a successful landscaping business with 15 employees and contracts booked 18 months out. I have my own place that I've renovated myself, yet they still pull me back in whenever they need something. So last Tuesday, I'm scrolling Instagram at 1 a.m. and see Jake's post, a family dinner photo with missing one person to make it complete. Farsh family first. There they were, Dad, Tina, and Jake, all smiles around Mom's antique dining table. The table I'd rescued and restored after Tina accidentally left a hot pan on it. The table I saved from being sold when bills were tight. My phone immediately buzzed with a text from Jake. "Saw you viewed my story. Easter dinner this Sunday at the house. Dad and Tina really want to see you. It's been too long." Translation: they need money. 3 months of blessed silence after the Christmas disaster, where Tina cornered me about investing in her wellness coaching certification. Of course they'd send Jake as the messenger. "Can't make it. Got a big landscaping job scheduled," I replied, despite having deliberately kept my weekend clear to work on my truck. Jake: "Come on, Luke. They miss you." I miss you. It's just one dinner. Dad's making his famous steaks. That stupid guilt knot formed in my stomach. Even at 28, I still fell for this emotional manipulation. Fine. What time? 5 p.m. Bring that caramel cheesecake Tina loves. Of course. Can't show up empty-handed to the house I helped pay for. I'd already marked the date on my mental scoreboard. Easter dinner, round 342 of the Luke Guilt Olympics. But this time, I wasn't walking in blind. No favors, no upgrades, no letting it slide. I was showing up for one reason only, to confirm what I already knew. Something was off. I could feel it. Sunday came, and I pulled up to the house, Mom's house, and sat in my car for a minute, bracing myself. The caramel cheesecake sat in the passenger seat, mocking me. $46.99 from that fancy bakery Tina loves, because heaven forbid I bring something from the grocery store where normal humans shop. I walked in and was immediately hit with the smell of sage and something else, probably one of Tina's weird rituals. The house looked nothing like the home Mom created, all beige minimalism with live laugh love energy. Mom's colorful throw pillows and family photos had been replaced with neutral tones and generic wall art about mindfulness. Jake bounded over like an overgrown puppy. Luke, you came! At 24, my little brother was still the same happy-go-lucky kid, untouched by the reality I'd been living in. His graphic design career was taking off, meaning he had an Instagram account with his digital art and occasionally sold a commission. But hey, he had the luxury of following his passion while living rent-free. I headed to the backyard, where Dad was flipping steaks with the grill tools I'd bought him 3 Christmases ago. Hey, I said, keeping my distance. He looked up, and for a split second, I saw something like guilt flash across his face before it was replaced with his usual distant smile. Luke, glad you could make it. That was it. No hug, no real greeting. Just acknowledgement of my presence like I was a casual acquaintance and not his firstborn son who'd kept his home from foreclosure. Lemonade? He offered, gesturing to the pitcher. Sure, I said, needing something to occupy my hands. How's work? Fine, fine. Getting close to retirement now. He flipped a steak unnecessarily. Jake says your landscaping business is doing well. I'd started my own landscaping and outdoor design company 2 years ago after working my way up from ditch digger. It was doing better than well. I had 15 guys working for me and contracts lined up for the next 18 months. But Dad wouldn't know that because he never actually asked. It's fine, I echoed back. Luke, you made it! Tina's voice cut through the awkward silence as she glided into the backyard, all flowing clothes and jangling crystal bracelets. She air-kissed near my cheek, careful not to actually touch me. And you brought my favorite cheesecake, Jake tells me. You're such a dear. I forced a smile, taking a long sip of lemonade that was somehow both too sweet and too sour, just like this whole situation. Dinner was the usual performance. Jake chattering about his latest digital project, Tina nodding enthusiastically while peppering the conversation with mentions of her clients and their transformative journeys. Dad mostly silent, occasionally throwing in a "that's great, son," whenever Jake paused for breath. I sat there, the invisible son, answering direct questions with minimal words, counting the minutes until I could leave without seeming rude. Then Tina dropped the bomb. So, we have some wonderful news, she said, reaching for Dad's hand across the table. We're renovating the master suite. I've been manifesting this for so long, and the universe finally aligned. Jake clapped like she'd announced world peace. That's awesome! Are you doing that rainfall shower you showed me? Yes. And a soaking tub. It's going to be a proper wellness sanctuary. She turned to me with that smile that never reached her eyes. Luke, honey, we were hoping you might help us out. With your landscaping company connections, I'm sure you could get us materials at cost. And there it was, the real reason for the invitation. My suppliers don't do indoor renovations, I said, taking another sip of lemonade. Oh, but surely for family, she pressed. Actually, Dad jumped in, setting down his fork. We were thinking more than just connections. The renovation package is about $30,000. We're a bit short. A bit short. The understatement of the century. I looked around at their life. The new espresso machine on the counter that probably cost more than my first car. Tina's designer yoga pants. Dad's golf clubs leaning against the wall. These people weren't broke. They were just entitled as fuck and assumed my bank account was an extension of theirs. Like I didn't work my ass off for every dollar while they were busy manifesting abundance or whatever bullshit Tina called it. How short? I asked, already knowing I'd regret it. Dad and Tina exchanged a look. About 18,000, he admitted. I nearly choked on my lemonade. You want me to give you $18,000? For a bathroom remodel? Not give, Tina said quickly. Invest. In the house. It adds value. The house you live in. That I don't. That's not an investment for me. Well, technically, it's still helping the family asset, she said with that condescending smile. I looked at Dad, waiting for him to say something. Anything. To acknowledge how absurd this was. He just looked at his plate. Why don't you take out a home equity loan? I suggested, trying to keep my voice level. Another look between them. We can't right now, Dad mumbled. Credit's a bit tight, Tina added vaguely. I thought about all those years I'd worked 2 jobs. All the shifts I'd picked up so Jake could have a normal life while Dad checked out and Tina manifested. While they were journaling and manifesting, I was picking up weekend shifts just so Jake could have a prom suit, I said, the words falling out before I could stop them. The table went silent. Jake's eyes widened like he'd never considered this perspective before. That's not fair, Luke, Tina said, her voice taking on that wounded tone she was so good at. We were all grieving in our own ways. Yeah, and my way was making sure we didn't lose this house while you were off at wellness retreats. Dad finally found his voice. That's enough. You don't understand adult responsibilities. I laughed, a harsh sound that cut him off. Are you serious right now? I've been handling adult responsibilities since I was 16. I'm the reason you still have this roof over your head. Actually, Dad said, his voice hardening, this is our house now. Mine and Tina's. You're just a guest in this family now. The words hit me like a physical blow. A guest? After everything I'd sacrificed? In that moment, something snapped inside me. All these years, I'd been the good son, the responsible one, the guy who kept picking up the slack while they lived their best lives on my dime. No more. If I was just a guest, then I was checking the fuck out of this toxic situation. And I was taking everything that was rightfully mine with me. Thanks for dinner, I said, standing up so quickly my chair nearly toppled. I've got an early job tomorrow. Luke, don't be dramatic, Tina sighed. I ignored her, heading for the door. Jake followed me, looking confused and upset. Hey, they didn't mean that, he said, catching my arm. Dad's just stressed about money lately. Aren't we all? I muttered, pulling my arm free. See you around, Jake. As I drove home, I couldn't shake Dad's words. A guest in the family. After everything, that's all I was to them. The next morning, I was at my office reviewing landscaping bids when my assistant brought in the mail. Among the usual business correspondence was an envelope from Whitman and Associates Estate Law. Curious, I opened it, expecting some kind of marketing material. Instead, I found myself staring at a property tax notification regarding Mom's house, my childhood home. Except according to this letter, the property tax assessment was now being sent to Tina Collins as the sole owner. My hands started shaking. This had to be a mistake. That house was in Mom's name when she died. Dad had always said it would stay in the family, meaning eventually it would pass to Jake and me. I called the law office immediately. They said, yes. Your father transferred the deed to Mrs. Collins, my stepmom, about 5 years ago. The crisp voice on the other end informed me. It was a gift deed, transferring full ownership. I have the paperwork right here, 5 years ago, when I was still helping with the mortgage. I thanked her and hung up, then just sat there, staring at the wall, letting the weight of it crash down. The renovation ask, the fake concern at Easter, Tina's family asset line, Dad's "you're just a guest" jab. It all made sense now. The house wasn't for the family. It hadn't been for a long time. They'd already cut me out years ago and just forgot to send the memo. I tried to breathe through the rage building in my chest, but after everything, Tina's fake smiles, Dad's silence, Jake's clueless invites, it all boiled over. That dinner wasn't just tone deaf. It was a performance. One last hustle to squeeze more money out of the family piggy bank before the truth spilled. I didn't plan it, but I was already in my car before I realized where I was heading. Mom's house. No, Tina's house, apparently. But not for long. Tina opened the door, surprised but still with that smug control she always wore like a face mask. Luke, we weren't expecting you. We need to talk, I said, walking past her into the house. Dad was in his recliner, watching golf. He muted the TV when he saw me, his expression guarded. I got an interesting letter in the mail, I started, pulling out the property tax notice. Something about Mom's house now belonging to Tina, exclusively. The color drained from Dad's face. Tina quickly composed herself, settling onto the couch with practiced calm. It's a complicated situation, Luke, she began in her therapist voice. Your father and I made that decision together. I ignored her completely. So, let me get this straight, I said, eyes on Dad. You gave Mom's house to your wife, the one who was pushing sage sticks before the chemo even settled. And you have the nerve to call me a guest? Tina shot me aggressive look. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. It was just a way to protect the property if something happened to me. Bullshit. If that were true, you'd have put it in both your names or created a trust for Jake and me. You gave Mom's house, the house I helped pay for after she died, to Tina. Your wife of what? 5 minutes? 7 years is hardly 5 minutes, Tina interjected, her calm slipping. 7 years versus Mom's 25, I shot back. The house she picked out, that she decorated, that she planned to leave to her children, and you tossed it all out like clutter so you could slap live laugh love signs on every wall? You don't understand, Dad started. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that while I was working 2 jobs to help the family, you were busy signing over our family home. I understand that you had no problem taking my money for the mortgage on a house you'd already decided wasn't mine or Jake's to inherit. Keep your voice down, Tina hissed. The neighbors? Don't give a shit about your neighbors. I want to know why. Why would you do this? Dad finally looked at me, his face a mixture of shame and defiance. Because I'm tired of you holding it over our heads that you helped out for a few years. Yes, you stepped up after your mother died, and we appreciate that. But families help each other. It's what we do. Funny, because from where I'm standing, it looks like I'm the only one who's ever been expected to give. That's not true, Tina jumped in. We gave you a home, guidance. I had a home, I roared. My home, with my mom, until you swooped in before her body was cold. The living room fell silent. I hadn't meant to say that out loud, but there it was. The resentment I'd been carrying for 12 years. I think you should leave, Dad said quietly, his face hardened, gladly. But first you should know I talked to a lawyer. The house transfer? Totally legal. Shitty, but legal. But the mortgage payments I made after the transfer? The ones you requested specifically for the house? That's fraud. Taking money under false pretenses. I knew I didn't do these things yet, but I already planned to, and had to make her feel the fear. And let me tell you, watching their faces during that conversation was better than any pay-per-view fight. Tina went from smug wellness guru to cornered rat in about 3 seconds flat. Dad looked like he was having that nightmare where you show up to work with no pants on. For once in my life, I felt like I had the upper hand with these people. And it felt fucking good. Tina's composed facade cracked completely. You wouldn't dare. I already did. I filed a complaint with the county DA's office. They're very interested in financial elder abuse cases. And while I'm not elderly, taking advantage of someone from age 16 does qualify as a vulnerability. Dad stood up, his face flushed. You're threatening us? Your own family? You made me the guest, Dad. So I'm officially checking out. I walked out, ignoring their calls behind me. As I got in my car, I felt not better exactly, but clearer. Like I'd finally lanced a wound that had been festering for years. The next morning, Jake called me, voice shaky, urgent, and I knew the fallout had just begun. Hey, I answered, still in a daze. Dude, are you sitting down? I just found out something crazy, he started, his voice uncharacteristically serious. That Dad signed over Mom's house to Tina? A pause. Wait, you knew? Yeah, got a letter from some lawyer. I overheard them fighting about money. Dad mentioned something about the house being in her name, and I thought I misunderstood, but did you know they're like super in debt? Dad's been hiding credit card bills. Now that was interesting. How bad? Bad. Like, I saw a statement for just one card that was maxed at 28,000, and I think there are others. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache forming. And let me guess, they want my help digging out of this hole. Luke, Dad lost his job 3 months ago. He hasn't told anyone. He's been pretending to go to work every day. The hits just kept coming. And Tina? Her wellness empire isn't exactly booming. Turns out people aren't buying $75 affirmation journals during a recession. I didn't know how to feel about that. Jake, I need to ask you something, and I want the truth. All those years I was working to help with bills, where was that money going? His silence told me everything. Jake, I think a lot of it went to Tina's business, and trips, and stuff. Yeah, like her retreats, and that time they renovated the kitchen, and my college fund. I closed my eyes, letting the betrayal wash over me. They'd been using my sacrifice to fund their lifestyle, while I put my life on hold. I'm sorry, Luke. I didn't know. I swear. I always thought we were just getting by, and you were helping because that's what families do. It's not your fault, I said automatically, protecting him like I always had. But I need some time to process this. After we hung up, I sat at my desk, staring at that letter until the words blurred. Then I picked up the phone again and called a real estate attorney friend. Hey, Mark, Got a situation I need your take on. I didn't plan what happened next. I'd made my peace with walking away, filing my complaint, which was real, by the way. The DA was actually reviewing it. I was prepared to cut ties and move on with my life. But then Jake called me in tears. Dad's moving out, he choked out. Tina's kicking him out. She's saying the house is hers and he has no legal right to stay. I pinched the bridge of my nose. When? Now. Today. He showed up at my apartment with 2 suitcases and wants to crash on my couch. Luke, what do I do? I sighed. Despite everything, I couldn't leave Jake to handle this alone. Bring him to my place. I have a spare room. Really? After everything? He's still our dad, Jake, and you don't have room for him and his emotional baggage in your studio apartment. Dad arrived looking smaller somehow, his shoulders hunched, his few possessions packed hastily into suitcases and garbage bags. Jake hovered anxiously as I showed Dad the guest room. Thanks, Dad mumbled, not meeting my eyes. It's just temporary, until I figure things out. Take your time, I said, not out of kindness, but because I knew he had nowhere else to go. Over dinner, takeout pizza that I paid for, as usual, Dad finally told us the whole story. How Tina had convinced him to put the house in her name for tax purposes. How they'd been living on credit cards for years, maintaining appearances while their debt mounted. How Tina had been taking cash advances to fund her failing business. She said she just needed time, Dad explained, staring at his pizza slice. That the business was about to turn a corner. One more retreat, one more product line. And you believed her, I said, not a question. I loved her, he said simply, as if that explained everything. Maybe to him, it did. As Dad settled into his new reality of job hunting at 58 and sleeping in his son's spare bedroom, I made a decision. I'd been planning to let my DA complaint run its course, maybe get some restitution and walk away. But that was before Tina threw Dad out like yesterday's trash. Before I saw what her selfishness had done to our family. She wanted to play hardball? Fine. I knew how to play too. My first call was to the IRS anonymous tip, of course, about a certain wellness entrepreneur who might be commingling personal and business expenses, who might have been writing off home renovations as business spaces, who might have been classifying personal vacations as research retreats. Then I called the head of the HOA, infamous for treating the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. Mom used to gripe about her constantly, but right now her rule-obsessed nature was exactly what I needed. Hi, this is Luke Collins, Sarah Collins' son. Yeah, it's been a while. I had a few concerns about one of the properties in the neighborhood. By the time we hung up, she was practically foaming at the mouth over possible violations. Unapproved business activity, overgrown lawn, that so-called meditation yurt plopped in the backyard with zero paperwork. I also reached out to Tina's competition, a legit wellness center downtown run by actual certified professionals, not Instagram-educated coaches. A casual mention of Tina's lack of credentials and questionable practices was all it took. The wellness industry thrives on reputation, and let me tell you, rumors spread fast. But my masterstroke came through an unexpected channel, Tina's own wellness circle. One of her clients, a girl called Marissa, happened to be dating one of my landscapers. Small world. And Marissa was more than happy to share screenshots of Tina's private client group, where she'd been making medical claims about her products. Claims that the FDA would find very interesting. I didn't have to do much more. Just set things in motion and watch Tina's house of cards collapse under its own weight. Like watching a perfectly planned garden grow, except instead of flowers. I was cultivating consequences. The best part? I never had to lie or cheat or do anything shady. I just exposed the truth and watched them implode under the weight of their own bullshit. Every time I got an update about another fine or complaint, I'd crack open a soda on my deck and toast to Mom. This one's for you, I'd say to the sky. Call it petty, but in a world where assholes usually win, watching karma finally catch up to them felt like justice. Within a month, Tina was drowning. The HOA had hit her with multiple violations and fines. The IRS had opened an audit of her last 3 years of tax returns. Her wellness certification was exposed as a $27 online course with no accreditation, and her clients were abandoning ship as rumors spread about her products and practices. I hadn't planned to go nuclear, but seeing Dad sleeping on an air mattress in my spare room, Jake stressed and confused, and the house Mom loved being used as a personal ATM by someone who never cared about our family, something in me snapped. The final nail came when Tina was forced to put the house on the market to cover her mounting debts. I watched the listing go live with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. That house held all my memories of Mom, and now it would belong to strangers. Something twisted in my gut, part rage, part grief, and part possibility. I picked up my phone, called my financial advisor, and checked my business account balance. Then I made a few more calls to check what kind of offer would be impossible for them to refuse. I wasn't planning on doing this, but seeing that for sale sign on the lawn of the house I'd helped pay for, the house that should have been part of Mom's legacy to me and Jake, suddenly the path forward became crystal clear. Unless I'm making an offer on the house, I told Dad and Jake over dinner the other day. They both stared at me in shock. You're what? Dad finally managed. Mom's house. Tina's listing it below market value because she's desperate. I'm buying it. Jake's face lit up. Seriously? That's awesome. Dad looked less enthusiastic, confused even. But why? After everything, why would you want that house? Because it was Mom's, I said simply. And it should have stayed in the family. The truth was more complicated. Yes, I wanted to preserve Mom's legacy, but I also wanted the satisfaction of taking back what should have been ours all along, of watching Tina have to hand over the keys to me, of all people. And yeah, my offer was accepted within hours. All cash, no contingencies, close in 2 weeks. Tina tried to back out when she realized who the buyer was, but her realtor made it very clear that she had no legal grounds to refuse a full-price, clean offer. On closing day, I insisted on doing the final walkthrough in person. Tina's face when she opened the door and saw me standing there was worth every penny of the purchase price. You, she said. Her face can't be explained. Me? I agreed pleasantly. Ready for the walkthrough? The house was half-packed, boxes everywhere. All her wellness crap was gone, probably sold off to cover debts. As we walked through each room, I made a show of inspecting everything, taking notes, pointing out issues. The deck needs refinishing, I commented. And that bathroom renovation you wanted? Totally unnecessary. The original fixtures Mom picked have much more character. I'd redo the retaining wall too, I added. Tina, you remember the one you knocked out for the yurt? The HOA says it's a safety hazard. Her eyes narrowed. She knew I wasn't here just for the paperwork. I was here to measure her fallout. By the time we reached the kitchen, Mom's kitchen that Tina had painted some awful grage color, she'd had enough. This is just cruel, she snapped. You're enjoying this. I looked at her directly. About as much as you enjoyed taking advantage of a grieving family. About as much as you enjoyed spending the money I earned while treating me like an ATM. I never... Save it. We both know exactly what you did. I glanced around one last time. Walkthrough's done. You can drop the keys off with the realtor. As I turned to leave, she called after me. Your father will come crawling back, you know. He always does. I just smiled. Good luck with that. She was wrong, though. Dad didn't crawl back. At least not to her. But he did try to crawl back into my good graces once he realized I'd bought Mom's house. I've been thinking, he said hesitantly one evening, maybe I could move into the house with you? Help fix it up? Make it like it was when your mom was alive? I studied him. This man who had let me carry his burdens, who had given away our family home, who had chosen his new wife over his children time and again. No, I said finally. That's not happening. His face fell. Luke, I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? Dad, you made choices. Deliberate choices that hurt me and Jake, that betrayed Mom's memory. I'm still your father, he insisted, a trace of his old authority creeping into his voice. I nodded slowly. You are, and I'll help you get back on your feet. I'll help you find an apartment, maybe even cover the deposit. But you made me the guest in this family, remember? So I'm checking out, permanently. He began to protest, but I held up my hand. This isn't negotiable. If you want a relationship with me going forward, it needs to be on new terms. Terms where I'm not your personal bank or emotional crutch. It was honestly the hardest thing I'd ever done. Harder than those double shifts, harder than watching Mom die, harder than seeing Tina in Mom's kitchen, setting boundaries with the father who had never set any for himself. As for the house, I moved in yesterday, after having a crew from my company strip it back to the bones. New paint in Mom's favorite colors. Her garden restored. Her photos back on the walls. Jake comes over all the time, sometimes staying in his old room. Dad visits occasionally, our relationship slowly rebuilding on my terms. Tina, I heard through the grapevine, moved to Arizona to live with her sister after her wellness empire imploded spectacularly, following multiple complaints to regulatory agencies. Sometimes when I sit on the back porch, the same porch where Mom used to drink her morning coffee, I think about how things might have been different if I'd stood up for myself sooner, if I hadn't let them use me for so long. But then I look around at the house that's finally, rightfully mine, and I know this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. It took nuclear options to get here, but some bridges are worth burning if it means finding your way home. Last week, I found a box of Mom's old journals in the attic. Real journals, not the manifestation nonsense Tina peddled. In one entry from when I was 15, she'd written, Luke has such a strong sense of justice. Sometimes I worry the world will take advantage of his big heart, but deep down I know he'll always find his way back to what matters. She was right. It just took me a while to get here.